Welcome to HOA Karen Storiezy. Hope you're well. I never imagined a simple summer afternoon by the pool would end in handcuffs, flashing lights, and a courtroom showdown. My son, just 7 years old, was laughing and playing by the water like any innocent child would. Then she showed up. You know the type, loud, entitled, always watching everyone else's business like she owns the world. We called her Karen long before things got serious, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. 1 minute my boy was reaching for his floaty, the next he was screaming and sinking because she pushed him into the deep end. And no, this wasn't an accident. This wasn't some joke gone wrong. This was intentional. Caught on camera. Witnessed by neighbors, and when I confronted her, she smirked. No apology, no remorse, just that smug look like she'd done nothing wrong. But that's where she messed up. What she didn't know is that I don't play games when it comes to my son's safety, and neither does the law. By the time this story was over, she wasn't just hated by the neighborhood. She was in jail facing real consequences for what she did. This isn't just a story about a pool incident. It's about justice, about standing up to bullies no matter how harmless they pretend to be. So keep watching, because what happened after the push, the courtroom drama, the lies she tried to spin, and the moment the judge gave his verdict, you won't believe it. This story only gets crazier from here. The neighborhood was exactly what you'd imagine when someone says suburban paradise. Tree-lined streets, kids riding bikes, neighbors chatting over white picket fences, a place where everyone mostly got along and felt safe. We'd lived there for a few years, and for the most part it was peaceful. My son, just 7 years old, loved playing outside, especially in our backyard pool during those warm summer afternoons. It was his little slice of happiness, and as a parent, seeing him laugh and splash around was all I ever wanted. I'm not the type to stir up drama, but like every neighborhood, we had 1 or 2 people who liked to keep a close eye on everyone else. That was Karen. She lived 2 houses down, and from day one, she made it clear she didn't just watch, she judged. Loud, sharp-tongued, and always ready to point out what she thought was wrong with someone. At first, I thought maybe she was just a little nosy, but over time it became obvious she thrived on making other people uncomfortable. We all had our suspicions about her, but no one wanted to confront her directly. Karen's attitude toward me and my family was thinly veiled contempt. She would watch from her porch, glaring whenever my son ran around in his usual carefree way. Sometimes she'd make passive-aggressive comments about how we should keep a closer eye on him, or how our lawn wasn't perfectly trimmed, as if she was the neighborhood's self-appointed watchdog. It was irritating, sure, but I tried to brush it off. After all, I wanted to avoid unnecessary conflict. The tension had been simmering quietly for months, like a pot on low heat, waiting for a spark. And that spark came on one bright summer afternoon, when my son was playing by the pool, splashing and laughing, completely unaware of the storm brewing nearby. That day started like any other, me keeping an eye on him from the patio, Karen lurking across the street, glaring over her sunglasses. I remember thinking how peaceful it was, how the sunlight danced on the water, and how innocent it all seemed. But beneath that calm, something was shifting. Karen wasn't just watching this time, she was waiting, watching, judging, and, as it would soon turn out, plotting. The quiet, tense undercurrent in the neighborhood was about to break, and nothing would be the same again. As my son played, carefree and happy, I had no idea that this simple day by the pool was about to turn into a nightmare none of us could have predicted. The quiet suburbia I loved was about to reveal a dark side I never expected to face, and it all started with Karen's next move. The day started like any other summer afternoon. My son was gleefully splashing in the pool, his laughter ringing through the warm air as I sat nearby, sipping my tea and keeping a careful eye on him. The sunlight shimmered on the water's surface, and for a moment it felt like nothing could go wrong. My heart swelled watching him so carefree, the way he kicked and paddled with pure joy, completely lost in his little world. But across the street, Karen was watching too. Only her expression was far from happy. She stood on her porch, arms crossed, eyes narrowed behind her oversized sunglasses. It was like she was waiting for something, her irritation growing with every splash and giggle. I noticed the way she tapped her foot impatiently, muttering under her breath. Her usual smug look was twisted into something darker that day, like entitlement mixed with thinly veiled anger. At first, I tried to ignore her. Maybe she was just having a bad day. But then she crossed the street, approaching the pool's edge. With that confident, almost threatening stride she always had when she thought she owned the place. She didn't say a word, just stood there watching my son with cold eyes. I called out to her, asking if she needed something, but she only sneered and muttered something I couldn't quite catch. Before I could react, it happened. Karen reached out suddenly and pushed my son. Not a gentle nudge or an accidental bump, but a full shove that sent him tumbling backward into the deep end of the pool. His little arms flailed as he struggled to keep his head above water, his face twisting in panic. The sound of his scream cut through the air like a knife. I jumped up, heart pounding in terror. My breath caught as I rushed to the edge, grabbing him just before he slipped completely under. His chest heaved as he gasped for air, tears streaming down his face. The shock and fear in his eyes are something I'll never forget. "Why would you do that?" I yelled at Karen, who just stood there smirking like she found the whole thing amusing. No apology, no concern. Just that same cold, smug expression. That made my blood boil. Neighbors had come out by then, drawn by the commotion. A few rushed over to help, wrapping my son in a towel and checking to make sure he was okay. Someone pulled out their phone and started recording Karen, whose attitude hadn't softened one bit. The whole thing was caught on camera. The proof, staring back at us with brutal clarity. I was shaking, a mix of fury and fear flooding through me. My son was safe now, but the damage had been done, not just to him, but to the fragile peace of our neighborhood. This wasn't just some childish prank or accident. It was deliberate, and it changed everything. The moment I pulled my son out of the pool, my eyes locked onto Karen's, burning with anger and disbelief. I marched right up to her, my voice shaking but firm. "Why did you push him? What's wrong with you?" I demanded. But instead of apologizing or even showing a hint of regret, she just laughed. A cold, cruel laugh that sent a chill down my spine. "He was being too loud," she sneered. "Maybe next time he'll think twice before bothering everyone." Her words hit me like a slap. No remorse, no sympathy, just pure, unfiltered cruelty. I tried to reason with her, telling her this wasn't a joke, that she could have seriously hurt my child. But Karen only smirked and rolled her eyes, acting as if I was the problem, not her. It was clear she had no intention of admitting fault or making amends. I knew I couldn't let this slide. I pulled out my phone and started reviewing the videos. Neighbors had already begun taking. The footage was damning. Clear as day, Karen's shove was deliberate and forceful. I also spoke to a few neighbors who witnessed the incident. Their faces were grave as they recounted what they saw. Their support was the only thing keeping me steady, as I realized just how serious this had become. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood. The atmosphere that was once calm and friendly turned tense, almost hostile. Families who used to greet each other warmly now exchanged wary glances, whispers behind closed doors. Karen's usual arrogance didn't help. She strutted around like she was untouchable, but behind that facade I sensed the unease growing. No one wanted to get involved, but everyone was watching, waiting to see what would happen next. The turning point came when I decided it was time to involve the authorities. It wasn't an easy decision. Part of me hoped it could be resolved, quietly, without the hassle of police reports and legal battles. But deep down I knew this wasn't just about my son or me anymore. This was about accountability, about standing up to someone who thought she could get away with hurting a child. I called the local police and filed a formal complaint. They took the situation seriously, scheduling interviews with witnesses and reviewing the video evidence. Karen, of course, tried to spin the story her way, claiming it was an accident or that my son had provoked her. But the proof was clear, and the witnesses were unanimous. As the investigation unfolded, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. Relief that justice might finally be served, but dread about how this would change everything in our neighborhood. The peaceful days were over. What started as a quiet summer afternoon had spiraled into a nightmare none of us expected. And now there was no turning back. The day the police showed up at our door felt surreal. After everything that had happened, I wasn't sure if I was ready for this next step, But deep down, I knew it was necessary. They were calm, professional, taking notes and asking questions, with a seriousness that made the whole situation feel even more real. I watched as officers walked around the yard, glanced at the pool, and listened carefully as I recounted the events in detail. My son sat close by, clutching my hand, still shaken but brave. When they went to speak with Karen, I hoped for a moment that she might finally admit what she'd done. Instead, she put on a show of innocence, denying any wrongdoing and claiming it was an accident. She insisted my son had slipped, that she never pushed him. Her voice was steady, but her eyes darted nervously whenever the video evidence was mentioned. I saw through the lies. The footage didn't lie, and the neighbors who witnessed it weren't backing down. The police took the evidence seriously and explained the legal process ahead. Charges would be filed, court dates scheduled, and a formal investigation launched. It was overwhelming to think about all the legal battles to come, but I was determined. No matter how hard Karen tried to spin her story, the truth was on our side. The days that followed were emotionally exhausting. Every time I looked at my son, I saw both his courage and the fear that still lingered in his eyes. It was painful knowing he had to relive the incident through retelling it for statements and court appearances. But I also saw his strength, and it gave me the resolve to keep pushing forward, to fight for justice no matter what. Our neighbors started to rally quietly around us. Some offered support in small ways, bringing over meals, checking in, offering words of encouragement. Others were more vocal, standing by our side when it mattered most. It was comforting to know we weren't alone, that the community could see how wrong what Karen did was. Their backing helped me stay strong when doubt crept in. Even as the legal wheels turned slowly, I clung to the hope that this nightmare would end with the truth prevailing. It wasn't just about punishment, it was about making sure no other family had to go through what we did. This battle was hard, but the thought of protecting my son and standing up against cruelty kept me going. The fight for justice had begun, and there was no turning back now. The courtroom was tense the day the case finally went to trial. Sitting there with my son by my side, I could feel every heartbeat echoing in my chest. The air was thick with anticipation as witnesses were called one by one, each recounting what they saw that summer afternoon. The video footage was played again, clear and undeniable, showing Karen's deliberate shove into the pool. There was no mistaking the truth, yet Karen's defense lawyer tried to twist the story, painting her as a victim of misunderstanding, claiming it was an accident, that my son had somehow provoked her. But no amount of spinning could erase what everyone had witnessed. Karen herself took the stand, her arrogance still intact, denying any real harm and refusing to show any remorse. The coldness in her eyes was unsettling, but it only made the verdict that much more important. The judge listened carefully to all sides, weighing the evidence with a steady hand. After what felt like an eternity, the silence in the courtroom was finally broken as the judge delivered the decision. Karen was found guilty of assault and sentenced to jail. Relief washed over me in a wave so powerful I almost cried. Justice had been served. The days and weeks that followed were a blur of healing and rebuilding. My son slowly regained his confidence, the laughter returning to his eyes, even if the memory of that terrifying moment never fully faded. For me, the relief was bittersweet. Knowing we had won didn't erase the pain or the damage done, but standing up for my son, refusing to let fear silence us, made all the difference. This experience taught me something crucial, that protecting those you love sometimes means facing uncomfortable truths and fighting battles you never expected. It showed me the importance of standing firm against cruelty, no matter how small or hidden it may seem at first. Bullies like Karen rely on silence and fear, but when you speak out, when you demand accountability, you send a message that can't be ignored. If this story moved you, please give this video a like and share it with others. The more we spread awareness, the stronger we become against injustice and bullying. Together we can protect our families and stand up for what's right. Thank you for watching and supporting our fight for justice.